First and foremost, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for my salvation, for my sanity, for my family, my wife. I'd like to thank Brother Orlando and Choose to Change staff for this opportunity to share my testimony and maybe, just maybe, help somebody out. Do I have any veterans in here? No? Okay. I ask you not to tune me out because as I go along, you're going to see that we have a lot in common. Okay? You're going to see that you and I have walked in the same boots. Okay? But as we go along, before I even start, I want to show you a little bit about my background, my life, what my life was about before I came to Christ. Okay? So here's a little short video. My unit, 4th Infantry Division. That was my first tour in Iraq. All that is live. That's what we actually did. We had a MLRS unit. We were in charge of the rocket launchers. So all that is live footage. So, as you can tell, my life was chaotic. My life was war. My mind was always at war. I did not know peace because to me peace was chaos. If I didn't have chaos, I didn't have peace. And so what ended up happening was, you know, there's a saying that we learned the hard way, is that nothing prepares you for war like war itself. You can prepare. We would go training for months and months and months before we even went to war. But something happens. When you get to war, everything changes. The whole environment, the whole climate, everything, you change, right? And you turn to survival mode. Now I know that nobody here has been in war. I know nobody here has been in Iraq. But I know somebody here has been in war. In their neighborhoods, in your minds, in your schools, in the streets. You guys have battled your own wars. And like me, you came back with wounds, you came back with trauma, you came back with scars. When I came back, I suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. The post-traumatic stress disorder is just a label given to military, but it actually happens to everybody. If you've been sexually assaulted, if you've been mentally assaulted, like abandonment as a child, if you've been physically assaulted, if you've suffered through any type of trauma, that's PTSD. All right? But the doctors won't tell you that. We're going to go into a little bit more about doctors before it's all said and done. But everybody suffers through trauma. You don't have to be in that type of war. You have to be in war here and in here. Okay? And I'm here to tell you, just like I got cured, you can get cured too. All right? And before it's all said and done, I'm going to give you guys the recipe. All right? What worked for me. I just want to say a disclosure so nobody gets sued. All right? Is whatever I say is what I have experienced. What happened to me, what I did. Okay? Now, I'm not asking you all to go out right after this and do what I did. Okay? You have to be in a right state of mind, a right spiritual mindset. You have to be in a certain level of faith to do what I did. Okay? So don't leave here saying, well, so-and-so told me I have to do this. Okay? But I came back and the world seemed different. You know, it was different because when I was at war, I was losing brothers and sisters. Right? My soldiers. And unfortunately, when you're in war, you don't have time to sit down and think about the losses, because you have to get up the next morning and do it all over again. All they do, if you lose a soldier, they replace it with another one. So here you go, here's a new one. So you don't have time, especially if you're a leader. So a lot of us go through life like that. A lot of us grow up in neighborhoods like that, where we don't take time to process the things that we have lost. We just continue moving forward, right? But something happens, and I'm telling you, if it hasn't happened to you yet, it's going to happen. This is what happened to me. I came back, and the world seemed different. I did not know peace anymore. I missed that. I longed for that. So I started drinking to compensate for my symptoms. All of a sudden, I started having nightmares. I started feeling suicidal. I started getting angry like that quick. I started getting anxiety, anxious. I was numb. I lost 3 wives in a 10-year period. And each one of them told me it was because I was numb, that I was cold, that I could not feel. I lost 4 daughters because of those 3 marriages. So I went from 2004 to 2007. I self-medicated with alcohol. Living in the military base, being in the military, I didn't want to risk my military career by going out and buying drugs. That came later. So I self-medicated with alcohol. And I broke a lot of laws, a lot of rules that I set myself. Maybe some of you can relate to this. But I would tell myself, I'm never going to drink on a weekday. I'm never going to drink alone. I'm never going to drink before work. And every one of those rules I broke. My drinking consumed me. I became an alcoholic, a full-blown alcoholic. I got arrested for a DUI. 6 months later, well, I hired a lawyer. My lawyer said, you know what, Alex, you haven't been in trouble before. I think we can get you a deferment, but don't get in any more trouble. I said, all right, yeah, no problem, no problem. You get me out of this? I said, I'll do anything. 6 months later, I got arrested again for a public intoxication. Called my lawyer again. He says, Alex, I told you not to get in trouble. I said, well, what do we do now? He says, well, now we wait. So, here I'm sitting on these 2 charges. They're going to revoke my deferment. Thank you. And I'll probably do some time. I'll definitely lose my career now. And I probably could have killed somebody or killed myself. So, meantime, I'm waiting. I'm getting worse. But after that's kind of like woke me up. I finally said, you know what? I went to my commander and I said, sir, I think there's something wrong with me. He said, okay, Sergeant, we're going to get you some help. And sure enough, they got me some help. I started with a counselor, moved up to psychologist, moved up to psychiatrist. And for 3 years, I dealt with psychiatrists, counselors, health professionals, doctors. And for 3 years, they had me on medication. They had me on 9 different types of medication. 5 for the actual medications for the depression, suicide, nightmares, anxiety, anger. And then 4 for the side effects. Now, I don't know if anybody knows here, but every medicine has a side effect. Some of those side effects are even worse than the symptom that you're taking it for. A lot of the psycho drugs that you get for PTSD cause suicide. Every day, 22 veterans commit suicide. Every day. That's not monthly, that's not yearly. And I was almost part of that statistic. So many times, I sat in my home with my 9mm Glock and spinned it around, and if the barrel pointed towards me, that was a sign. I must have done that about 60 times. And not once did it point at me. So, I continued, and just by the grace of God, I got an opportunity to go back to Iraq because, like I told you, you missed that. There's no adrenaline like it, no feeling like war to me. And so I volunteered to go again. And I went again. It cost me my third wife. I went back, came back. Total, I did 2 years and 3 months in that type of environment. Eventually, the doctors, the military, the army, they said, you know what, Sergeant, you're not getting any better. We're going to kick you out. In other words, I'm getting fired. After 27 years, I'm getting fired. Cast aside. So, what do? I come home to the valley. Now there's no restrictions, right? Because now I'm no longer in the military. Oh, by the way, after a week of coming back, I was divorced again from my fourth wife. Same thing. So now I don't have a wife. And my kids are not living with me. And the army's not looking over my shoulder. So now I dive into marijuana, harder drugs, cocaine, ecstasy. Somebody told me once that marijuana was a good drug if you had PTSD. They said, you know what, you smoke that and the anxiety goes away. And oh, by the way, when you're coming down, you go to sleep. And man, you didn't have to tell me that twice, man. I jumped on that quick. So that was my life for about 3 months, 4 months. And what ended up happening was I ended up checking myself into, for the second time, into a rehab center. I was treated for suicide, alcohol, drugs. I was going to AA meetings, right? For those of you that have attended AA meetings, here's the difference between man's medicine and God's medicine. When I was going to AA, I was not drinking, but the urge was always there. I couldn't see a TV commercial, a beer, alcohol. I couldn't drive by a bar because the urge, I would salivate. But when I got saved, God not only took my alcoholism, but even the urges away. That's the difference. God is total, while man is minimal and temporary. So, I'm spiraling out of control now. I start coming to church. And I start noticing, I start hearing testimonies. I start seeing, witnessing miracles. And I'm like, surely, why does that always happen to somebody else? We always think that can never happen to me. That's not me. And so I'm still on medication. And then I finally decide to bow down. I remember Jesus calling me during an altar call. And he said, son, you need to answer this altar call. This is for you. And it seems like forever because we like to debate with God a lot. And so it seemed like forever, but it was just seconds. And like the defiant people that we are, I told God, I said, God, you show me where PTSD is in the Bible. You show me, I believe you. And he led me to Mark 5. Mark 5, 1 through 20. Before I go into that scripture, let me tell you what I was living with. I was living, remind you, I was living with the demon of anxiety, with the demon of alcoholism, with the demon of nightmares, with the demon of suicide, with the demon of anger. I was living with all these demons in my head. And so Mark 5 made perfect sense to me. Mark 5 talks about Jesus going to the demon-possessed man on the island who was cast away from society, from everybody else, who had many demons in his mind. And just simply by speaking to him, he rebuked all those demons out of that man. And so to me, it made perfect sense. If Jesus can cast out a legion of demons, a lot of people say it's at least 2,000 demons. What is my 5, 7 demons that I'm living with? It's nothing. It's nothing to God. And so I bowed down that day, and I went home. And I stopped taking these. I stopped taking them, and funny thing happened. I was able to think again for myself. I was no longer numb. These drugs they give you, they numb you. The way doctors want to treat people is by numbing people. Zombies. And so, as soon as I gave that up, I was able to think again. Now, the Army had already said I was 70% crazy. I was able to make it 100% when I came back and hit the streets. I was able to become 100% crazy. But a funny thing happened when I gave that up and I gave myself to God. Because I was able to think again. Now, I got, Jesus restored my wife. I have a new wife. I met her here at church. We've been married 2 years. Restored my children. My wife has children of her own, so they're mine. But more than anything, God restored my sanity. I've been able to, the past 3 years, I've been going to college. Not a community college, but a UTRGB. I have finished a minor in psychology. I have completed a bachelor's in criminal justice. And now I'm working on a master's in rehabilitation. Now I'm telling y'all, it's not because of me. And it's definitely not because of the professors. But it's because of God. Amen. It's because of Jesus Christ. It's the faith that I have in Him. And it's because of His plan that He has for me that I'm doing so well in school. That doors keep opening for me. To this day, 3 years, 3 degrees, I owe zero money to the college. It's all been free.
Really?
God provides, is faithful. So, I've been able to go back to school. I've been able to do some internships. One of my best ones is I did an internship at the parole office. And I really enjoyed that because I got to see, because, I might become a parole officer. That's one of my options, And the one thing I learned there is I used to go to their revocation hearings, And I used to like that. That was very incentive to me, right? And what I learned is, at the same time, I was also teaching anger management at Lopez Unit, right? So what I would learn at the parole office, I would take it back to my students at Lopez Unit. And I would tell them, look, you guys need to do this, you guys need to do that, this is what you're going to succeed. And what I learned is about 90% of the men and women that got revoked was because of lack of one thing. Somebody tell me what that one thing is?
Self-control.
Self-discipline.
Okay, there you go. Discipline. Same thing. Self-control, discipline. I asked my students one day, I said, who here would do anything to make parole? And they all raised their hands. All of them would do anything. But funny things happen once you walked out of once you walk out of that gate. I was able to witness both sides of the fence. Being in there, seeing them, and being over here with the parole officers. And let me tell you, I told them, look, if you guys forget about why you want out, if you guys forget the discipline, the commitment, everything, the hard work that you're doing in here, you guys are not going to make it out. You're going to come back. I saw it too many times. Some of them with the littlest things, just for temporary pleasure. You forget. And a lot of them have families, which is what hurts the most. I went to my psychiatrist after I got saved. And I told him, I said, sir, I don't think I need to seek anymore. I definitely don't need any more medication. He said, why? I said, I got saved. I got God in me. I haven't taken medicine. And here's what he did. He said, okay, all right. And then we kept on talking and talking. Before I left there, he said, oh, by the way, I increased your medication. And as you can see, the medicine keeps coming. Because that's the way doctors are. That's the way the world is. Let me tell you a little bit about pharma. It's no secret that I concentrated on these studies in psychology, addiction, rehabilitation. It's no secret. The reason I dedicated 3 years of college is so that I can know why they were telling me this. Why are they telling me that I need to take this? Why are they telling me that I need to go see a doctor every month? And what I found out in the military is if you want to defeat the enemy, you got to go to the enemy's camp. You got to find out what they know. You got to find out what makes them tick, and then come back out and use that information against them. So now I advocate against this. Now I know why doctors, psychiatrists, why they recommend that, why they prescribe so much medication. We have increased statistically the use of medicine, that it's overwhelming. This is called the pharma war. Pharmaceuticals that make billions of dollars. And a lot of it, let me give you an example. China. China has a lot of and I learned this from my professor. China has a lot of people. It's the biggest per population in the world. The pharmaceutical companies here in the United States, they said, you know what? We can make a lot of money if we only sold drugs to China, right? And then, yeah, but what can we sell? So they got together and they said, you know what? Let's send a representative over there. At that time, China did not know what depression was. And so they sent a representative over there and they said, you know what? This guy or this person is suffering from depression. Bam. Once you give it a name, now you need a cure for it. They ended up calling it, it interprets to flu of the soul, is what they call it in Chinese. And so now that they've given it a name, now they need medicine, right? So now these pharmaceuticals are able to sell millions of dollars. There's a book that they use, it's called the DSM. It has 5 different revisions. Okay, DSM is a book. It's about this thick, and it tells you all the different disorders. It tells you what the symptoms are. And it helps doctors, right? But they keep renewing it from time to time, and that's what the doctors use. The new DSM has something new that the other 4 didn't. In this one, they have disorders for teenagers and below, for children. Now, we all know if you have children, children are wired, children are hyper, right? A lot of us really, children, they're just hyper. That's what they do. They're children. But now, these pharmaceutical companies are able to sell medicine to teenagers and below. Why? Because they've given them names. Let me tell you something else about names. There's something in psychology called the label theory. The label theory. What that means is, back in the day, say for example, somebody would steal. They labeled society. We're talking about society. Society labeled that person a thief. Somebody would beat somebody up or whatever. They would label that person a bully. You see where I'm going with this? It's a label, right? So a lot of people, especially criminals, they would label them criminals. And some of them, for a long time, took that to heart. And so, when you label somebody, you got to be careful about when you label somebody. Because people take it serious. You label somebody who drinks, you label that a drunk, an alcoholic. And guess what? Even if they're not, they're going to become that. That's the label theory. But what some people did, they started bucking that theory. They said, you know what? Yeah, I might have stolen in the past, but you know what? That's not me. That does not define me. That is not who I am. I made a mistake, and I'm going to move on. And that pretty much blew that theory away. All right? But now there's something else. There's another theory called self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy is similar to the label theory, except it's not society that makes you think like that, it's yourself. A self-fulfilling prophecy is what I think of myself. If I believe that I'm a bad person, then I'm going to live like a bad person. When I was drinking, I believed I was an alcoholic. So I would drink more. That is my self-fulfilling prophecy. So a lot of us here may or may not have a self-fulfilling prophecy. You got to be careful with that. You got to let that go. How much time do I got?
Take your time.
Okay. But all these things, the point is that I'm no better than anybody here. I'm no better than anybody in this room. Okay? The only difference is my spiritual life. Here's what I started doing recently. And this may or may not help somebody. But recently, I'm going about 3 weeks, I decided to make a change. I remember God put in my head. He said, son, do you remember when you were at war? Do you remember what you used to carry with you all the time? An M16. I used to carry an M16 everywhere in Iraq. You have to. You sleep with it. You take it to the chow hall. You eat with it. You go to the bathroom with it. And of course you fight with it. So you use that M16 for everything. It never leaves your side. When you do, like for example, when we came back, you get anxious. You're looking for it. Where is it? Where is it? I'm going to get in trouble. You know. So God showed me that to show me this. He said, you know what, son? You don't have an M16 anymore. But you have this. And so I started carrying this for the past 3 weeks everywhere I go. I take it to my classrooms. I take it to the university. I take it everywhere we go. I'm not carrying it so people can say, oh, he's godly, he's this and no. This is my weapon.
Amen.
The word says that it's a sword of the Spirit. This is what I fight with now. I was a man, I was a child raised in the streets. I was a teenager raised by the army. And now I'm going to be a man raised by God. When I was a child, when I was in the world taught me to fight like this with my fists. The army taught me to fight like this. God has shown me to fight on my knees. I have defeated tougher enemies on my knees.
Amen.
Through prayer, through faith. And I just want to tell you guys that I'm no different than you. Anybody anybody can do what I did and even better. And God's way has no side effects, no artificial flavoring. It has nothing. It's 100% real. I also went to my doctor and I told him that because I would take high blood pressure medicine and high cholesterol medicine, and I told my doctor I wasn't taking them anymore because they said that they saw I hadn't been reordering. They said, "Are you still taking them?" I said, "No. You just took my vitals when I came in and they were perfect." You know what they did? They said, "Well, we're going to give you a pressure thing for your arm so that you can check yourself every day because we don't want you to what does it say? We don't want you to diagnose yourself." Yeah, and I still have it in a box. It's brand new. But see, this is what the world is like. They don't want you to get better. They don't want, they want to keep you down. They want to keep you numb. They want zombies. But I guarantee you, if you give Christ a chance, you will not be disappointed. You got to reach a spiritual level, brother, that no matter what, because the world will push back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing more, nothing real fancy. I don't have any fancy answer other than I used to suffer from bitterness. I used to suffer from, I used to be very judgmental. I used to be very selfish. Very selfish. And a lot of times those battles are even worse than the physical battles. Because they're up here and they're in here. So to me, those were a lot. It's easier to fight something you can see. It's easier to fight something that you know where it's coming from. But when it's inside of you, when you are the enemy, that's a lot harder. I got a few minutes, right?
Yes.
Let me share something with you guys. I'm going to give you a quick history class. In the colonial times, back in the British days, when they fought, like in the Civil War, they would fight in columns, right? You'd have one army here, right? And basically the idea was just shoot it out. Whoever had the most ammunition would win, right? And then whoever's left, they just consider themselves the winner and they leave. It wasn't like, no, you run and you hide. The wars were not fought like that. That came later, right? If somebody died in front of you or next to you, somebody else will step in, right? So we evolved from that. There's a good and a bad thing for that. The good is that you know where the enemy is. He's right in front of you. All you got to do is shoot straight, right? The bad thing is that it's too many casualties. Too many people die like that, right? So now they evolved into that. I call that a personal battle. Face to face. A lot of us fight our problems face to face. Now we evolved from that to impersonal. Impersonal is what we did in World War I, World War II with Iwo Jima. We created bombs, right? Atomic bombs, missiles, and we would drop them on the enemy, right? And there was a lot of, like before we went into Iraq, we waited days. The ships, the Navy would bomb the city day and night so that when we went in there, we had very little resistance. We didn't just walk in there, right? So, and there's an advantage and disadvantage to that. The advantage is that it saves lives, saves our lives, right? But the disadvantage is that innocent people get killed. That's the disadvantage. Now, let me take another step. When I was in Iraq, we noticed a new way of fighting. They don't fight women and children as bombers. You don't know where the enemy's coming from, right? We call that guerrilla warfare, all right? You don't know where the enemy's coming from. There's an advantage and disadvantage to that. The advantage is that it gives the impression that the enemy is a lot bigger than what it actually is. It gives the impression that the enemy is very much alive and is ready to fight, right? Now the disadvantage of this is that it makes people numb. You just see too many. We're not used to fighting that way. They are, but that's where PTSD and our problems come in as American soldiers, right? So those are the advantages and disadvantages. Now, the devil does the same thing. The devil first comes to you in a personal manner. He comes to you through addictions, through alcoholism. That's the devil's way of coming at you. First, he's going to come personal, one-on-one. And then, when you master that, he'll change your strategy. And this is what he does. He goes impersonal. He'll attack your family. He'll attack your friends. He'll attack your reputation. That's impersonal, right? And then, when you master that, he'll come at you in a guerrilla warfare. He'll pop out, maybe he'll attack your job. He'll attack your car, your transportation. He'll attack your finances. That's guerrilla warfare, right? And all that does is to give the impression that the enemy, in this case the devil, is a lot bigger than he is when he's not. See, that's the way the devil fights. My 10-year-old girl answered this for me. I asked her the same thing one day. I said, how can I go into heaven when I kill people? You know what she told me? She said, because you weren't saved yet. And now that you're saved, you can.
Amen.
That's wisdom. A 10-year-old girl told me that. And I think it goes for anything. Whatever you did before you got saved, just leave it in the past, man. Leave it in the past. The Bible says, once you accept Jesus Christ, you start anew.
You're a new creation.
Yes.
The old self is dead,
Exactly.
so why bring them alive? Why kick them in the grave?
Exactly. You know what? But the devil wants you to keep thinking like that. He'll keep reminding you, hey,
Yep.
you're not good enough. He'll keep putting your old friends, in your past. I'm going to show you how to change your past without going in a time machine. Okay? Okay, this is how we change our past, right? If I'm going to convince you that you can change your past, I need to convince you of two things. Okay? I need to convince you of two things. One, I need to convince you that there is a past. Right? From today until 1969, so forth, that's your past, right? Now, next year, 2018, you're going to be over here. This is also eventually going to become, guess what?
Past.
Your past. But this is called your future.
Right now.
This becomes your future past. Right? So, if you want to change your past, you need to take a step forward, starting today, commit yourself to Christ, and then tomorrow, you will have already changed your past. Because you're no longer living in the crazy world that we live in today, where we go around in circles, round and round and round.
Insanity.
Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting
Different.
Yes. So if you want to get out of this, start tonight. Tomorrow you will already have a day that you change your past.